Sorry about that, everybody. Motorcycles are a thing. Facebook Live, we struggle. We struggle with this. Um, Sorry about the delay. We got people logging in here. All right, let me get this moved over here. All right. Well, we'll kind of kick this thing off. Sorry for all the delays. We just came back from Summit Point. We won our seventh WERA Endurance by N2 National Endurance Championship. And, a huge shout out to N2, Rob Chickalo especially. He's been one of our instructors for a lot of years. And he really made a big push this year to get a lot of sponsors on board. I know Dunlop came on in a pretty big way to support the series. And they've been really doing everything they can to just grow the sport, really all throughout the U.S. And, endurance racing's kind of always been a bit of a passion for me. It gives you a lot of opportunity really to work on your riding. So there's a lot of people that we know that are, doing track days. And that's why I think what Rob's big kind of push is, hey, we're doing track days and we want to maybe get into racing, but we don't want to be kind of bumping handlebars and doing that whole thing. So, it was an idea of, hey, can we get some people together? Can we go, roll around the racetrack, have a little bit of fun, get some racing experience, but in a little bit of a not so intense atmosphere like sprint racing where, people are going kind of 10/10ths. So that was kind of a little bit about kind of the series and what they've been doing. We won it a bunch of years in a row, and kind of wanted to dig into some of these things that we see out on the racetrack. These endurance races typically in the U.S. they're about 4 hours long, so you got a lot of time on the bike to kind of think about your riding. But we see a lot of issues from other riders when we're out there kind of lapping. We'll be out on track. We're on a Yamaha R1. So we've got a fairly fast motorcycles, but we're going to have twins out there as well. There's some R7s, there's SV650s. So, you have a lot of different closing speeds, and a lot of things are kind of constantly changing while you're out there riding. And, it gets into one of the questions that we always get about the school is, hey, I was thinking about ChampSchool, or I was thinking about ChampU, and, I'm a track rider, I'm a racer, is it going to be worth it for me? If you've either done the program or you've done ChampU or kind of been to anything, watched our videos, what this whole sport really boils down to is technique is technique. The bike really does not care whether you're on your favorite street ride or you're on your favorite racetrack or canyon road. The bike really does not care. So really what we work so hard at is ChampSchool is, we always kind of think of ourselves as more of a technique-based school. We're really working on what things work to make the motorcycle really work the way it was designed to be ridden, which is, by the expert level riders that design the bikes. So we're always kind of tweaking our curriculum based on that. So, if you're thinking, well, I'm doing track riding, I'm not sure if it's worth it. There's a lot of things that are going to correlate between everything that you're doing. So if you haven't done ChampU yet, check it out. It's $49 right now, and I think you'll get a huge amount out of it. Check out our dates. We're pretty much sold out for a lot of the events coming up, but some stuff towards the end of the year is happening. We're about to get our new schedule out, and it should be a pretty cool deal. A little bit of background about myself. I started riding when I was 7 years old on a Yamaha PW80, and just had the greatest time on the thing, and started getting on mini bikes when I was 11. So pretty much my entire motorcycle career has really been based on racetracks, and that's always been kind of a big passion for me. When I started riding bigger bikes, got up into some 125 GP bikes when I was 13 years old. And a good friend of ours that we were racing with at the time said, hey, you should, if you're thinking about getting better at the sport, you should really think about coaching, right? Think about, really what makes the best riders in the world good at what they're doing is they're focused and working so hard on getting better at this sport. And they said, hey, we know this guy from Freddie Spencer's school who does a lot of coaching stuff. And, obviously that was Nick Einots. And so we got in touch with him back when I was 13. And really he's been my personal riding coach since then. 25 years. I've gotten to ride hundreds of racetracks all over the world. Got to do a lot of stuff. And, to this day, winning our 7th national championship this last weekend, I'm still always thinking about kind of techniques. How can I get better at this? What kinds of things can I improve on? And, those are kind of the things that we want to kind of kick off with a little bit here today and talk about some of these things. So if you do come out to a school, typically what we'll do is we'll split at ChampSchool the group into 2 groups. Typically a little bit of a newer rider group, a little bit of a more experienced group. And, the idea is you're all hearing the same stuff, but it always comes down to a degree of application, right? The rider that just got their license is going to be wanting to work on maybe slightly different than someone who's going to go try to win at the next club race, try to maybe get into the A group from the B group, whatever their goals are. We kind of split it up a little bit based on speed. So all the same techniques, but kind of tweaking on some of these things that we really want to get across. So, we talked to Rob Chickalo, who's been to a lot of schools with us, and he was there with us. We're just at Lightning 2 weeks ago, and we said, hey, at a TrackDay, what percentage of riders are online for the whole lap, right? One whole session, getting around, hitting apexes, using the racetrack really as efficiently as they can. And he says, well, in the beginner and intermediate group, it's fairly low, but if they were doing those things right, the A group's pretty good. And if they were doing those things right, they would be in there, right? So, a lot of these ideas is, how do we get maybe a little bit more proficient at what we're doing? How do we get take that next step to maybe kind of move up in that C group to the B group to the A group? If you're racing novice, how do you get up to that pro level? How do you get to a Moto America level? And, throughout the last several seasons, a lot of things, we get typically on our endurance bike, we run, we have an almost 10-gallon fuel tank. And so we can ride for one whole hour, so the idea is in a 4-hour race, you stop 3 times, you change tires, you change riders, and you get going back out once you've refueled. So, we see a lot of things, and as we, really have about the first handful of laps in a race where everything is perfect, right? You've got no riders in front of you, your tires are fresh, tires get warmed up, feeling pretty good mentally, you're quite fresh, but as the stints go on, you start catching other riders, right? And we see typically a lot of the same issues of the riders that are maybe further towards the back of their class, whether it's, maybe they are racing a lightweight bike, you'll catch some lightweight bikes and it's like, wow, you'll see them coming down the straightaway or coming up 80 mile an hour faster than them. And you're like, I'm going to blow right past them. But because their technique is so good, you start getting in the corner and man, they're actually getting through a lot of these corners quicker than you. And you'll catch some riders, same thing. And it's like, oh my God, I wouldn't have expected them to be there, right? So, a big part of, I think, what separates some of the more expert level riders and people that are a little bit newer getting into doing some endurance racing or getting into track days is the professionals are very predictable, right? They have a certain way of everything that they're doing. Lap after lap, they're hitting more apexes. They're using the racetrack a little bit better. They are really just kind of working towards this whole idea of consistency. We talk about some of these things that at ChampSchool and ChampU, simple things like radius equals mile an hour. I'm sure you've probably seen some of our videos on it, right? The concept, very simple, right? As we accelerate, our radius gets bigger. As we decelerate, our radius gets tighter. But you'll follow some riders and lap after lap after lap, if the apex is here, they're all the way out here, right? It becomes very unpredictable as you're starting to catch those riders. Like, okay, are they going to miss the apex? Are they going to run it wide? Are they going to try to cut back in? you've missed the apex because your speed did not match the radius of the corner, right? So some of these little things, if you are doing track days, think in this idea of, can I be maybe a little bit more proficient in my riding? Can I place the bike where it needs to be on the racetrack? Adding speed to issues like, hey, I've missed the apex, now I'm going to try to go quicker, is typically when we start really running to issues. We'll see riders tip over, running off the racetrack, and it's typically just not really having a consistent thing that they're working on as they're riding. And this idea of consistency it's kind of an interesting thing, right? So you'll watch a MotoGP race and they will run the whole race within 3 or 4 tenths. In our endurance racing stuff, we'll run the whole race, typically an hour stint within a second. We start with about 70 pounds of fuel. By the end of it, you've got very, very little fuel. You start with fresh tires. By the end of it, you're almost on cords, right? So there's a lot of stuff that's changing, yet the lap time is still looking fairly similar. And I think a lot of newer riders that get into the track have this notion of, okay, well, I am going to do this here. I'm going to turn it in here. I'm going to brake this hard. I'm going to use this brake marker. I'm going to hit this point. I'm going to open the throttle up at 25% up to here. And it really is not like that, right? So where the consistency in the sport really comes from is through adjustability, right? Being able to adapt to change, being able to go, wow, I got a draft. I'm in here a lot faster. I know I'm going to start needing a little bit more brake pressure. I might go to the brakes a whole brake marker or 2 brake markers earlier than maybe I might be doing on my own. As the tires start coming off, hey, I'm going to work on getting this bike pointed a little bit better, because as I drive out of the corner, it's going to start spinning more. I need to reduce my lean angle, right? 100 points of grip idea. So really trying to find this consistency through adjustability. And, there really is no silver bullet to our sport. You wish there was like, if I could do this, I'm going to get this lap time. And, there may not be a silver bullet, but eyes and brakes, I think are probably the 2 biggest things that really I'm working on consistently, because that's what allows us to adjust our corner entry to be able to place the bike to really do what our bikes do well, which is accelerate back off the corner. So if you are a rider that goes to a track day, racing, whatever you're doing, and you're consistently overslowing corner entries, often it's because we got to get our eyes to where the direction change needs to happen in the corner, right? We need to give that bike, okay, well, if I get pointed here, I am going to be able to carry my maximum exit speed coming back off the corner. But in order to get the bike here, I need to get my eyes to that point, and I need to be able to really modulate my speed. At ChampSchool and ChampU, we focus so much on this idea of braking, right? It's really the key to this whole sport is, if you can slow your motorcycle more efficiently, you can get it pointed and off the corner maybe a little bit better than a lot of these other riders. So, that's something towards the top of my priority. I've been racing for 25 years, and that's always for me. I have a very predictable way of riding. I've got body position going. I've used the racetrack really well. That's the thing. As you go quicker, it all changes again, right? So I'll spend the majority of my weekend really working on some of these things. Is, hey, as we go quicker, I have to use my eyes a little bit quicker. If you're on a faster bike, eyes have to move a little bit faster. So being able to, 1, see things, 2, be able to adjust that situation becomes a pretty important thing. And I think the biggest mistake we see from a lot of track day riders is, when you come to the school, we talk about the umbrella direction, right? Getting that bike pointed to really maximize corner exit speed. And, I think the thing that we see is people not really putting that high enough in their priorities, especially if you ride a fast bike, if you're on 600s, 1000s, things that really have a lot of horsepower and can get driven off the corner. In these endurance races, you'll see people go, oh, I hear that bike accelerating, I'm going to accelerate, but they don't yet have direction. So all of a sudden the bike starts to run wide. right? The bike runs wide, so to keep it on the racetrack, they're either having to roll back out of the throttle or make these adjustments because they didn't take that extra moment to let that bike really get pointed, see our corner exit, so we could really maximize that drive off that corner. So, you know, towards the top of the things that I'm working on when I get out there is one, can I get my bike pointed? When we think about, you know, do I really have direction on a racetrack? You know, on the street, we're always going to leave quite a bit in reserve, right? There's things that we're accounting for cars. You've got traffic, you've got gravel in your lane, whatever it might be. But on the track, we have the privilege of things are, you know, very consistent lap after lap. We know the racetrack opens up. So when I'm riding my endurance bike, when a bike truly has direction, it's really pointed out of the corner. Acceleration is very progressive, right? So if you feel like when you go to the throttle, we go, brr, whoa, I'm going to run off the racetrack. I have to roll out of the throttle. I have to readjust my speed. That's a pretty sure sign that we did not have direction. It was not time to accelerate off the corner. So when you see these riders getting out wide, they're missing their apex, they're starting to drive, I know they're going to get to wide open throttle significantly later, right? So you can start planning your passes that. And that really is the key of the lap time, right? The rider that can get to wide open throttle soonest, stay there the longest, is going to have the quicker lap time. So this idea of really learning direction and getting the bike pointed is a huge part of this consistency idea that we're going to. You know, one of the things we'll see a little bit at track days is riders, you know, spending the whole day working on bike setup, right? And bike setup for sure plays its part, but here's the way we start to think about it, because I know we get a lot of questions about this at the school is, hey, when is it time for me to upgrade to the Olin shock? When is it time to do this? What about my sag number? So when we start thinking about our bike setup and things that we're going to start making these little changes to our bike, we as the rider need to not be the variable, right? And that's where I think a lot of people struggle. They go, okay, well, my lap time might be here and I want it to be here, so it's got to be the bike, right? I want to, you know, fix my bike for the situation, but every time you go to the brakes, you may be doing it somewhere different. When you release the brakes, it's here one lap. It's over there one lap. It's back here one lap. Maybe your body is up high on the bike. You're not giving the bike the signal to steer, right? So if you don't have a consistent way of riding, that bike set, you could tweak and put preload in it. You could change clickers. You can get valving going. You get all these things happening. But if we don't have a consistent way of riding, all those kind of it's fairly irrelevant. You might feel maybe a little change, but you know, it's the thing that really we work so hard at, especially a pro level race at a very high level for a lot of years. If we are not having a consistent way of what we're doing, it doesn't matter what you're doing to that bike. It's going to be a little bit of a struggle. So, you know, we used to kind of say it quite a bit at the schools. It's me, it's always me, right? Getting this idea of, all right, if my bike, this is the apex and my bike is out here, what component am I late with or do I need more of, right? Brake pressure. We got to let that thing slow turn point to where it gets to where it wants to go. Then once we have direction, the bike's on apex, we can accelerate off the corner, and then we can start thinking about some of these bike setup issues. Hey, it's spinning, it's pumping, it's doing whatever it is, but until we have a consistent way of riding, meaning our bike is here in every single corner, right? Right behind me, that's Indy Motorsport Ranch. It's where we do a lot of our winter schools. It's 21 turns, right? There's 21 report cards out there. How am I doing? If I don't have my knee over the curb and I know I'm not using that track efficiently, right? I know I'm not doing well. I know that next lap I'm going to come in, make a change, do whatever I need to do to change my riding until I can start getting that consistency. So, you know, that's one of the things that we really see jumping out quite a bit at track days is chasing this idea of setup without a consistent way of riding. You know, these test riders, these racers, you know, these Yamahas, people get on the R6 and the R7 and they love them. They go, man, this is just a phenomenal motorcycle because it was ridden by someone who was very consistent that was able to set the rake and trail numbers, put the valving into the forks, pick the spring rates, right? Out of the box, they're pretty darn good, you know? So if you are a new rider, thinking of getting into track days and are curious, like, hey, when should I upgrade my bike? Look at your lap times, right? Lap times is the cool thing about the sport is it's very provable, right? You could try something different and the result starts looking different, right? So the more consistent we get in our riding, we can start playing with some of these things, but at a certain, you know, it takes getting to a certain pace and a certain level of consistency before we get into that idea. So, you know, next thing is kind of getting this efficiency number going. We do at the schools, we have our champ scores, our fundamentals, things that we're working on. And efficiency is one of the biggest things. You know, if you're out on the racetrack, a lot of it we're thinking about is, you know, how much am I coasting, right? Thinking that's a very inefficient way of riding. If you're coasting a lot on the racetrack, you'll do it more on the street because we don't know what's around the corner. You know, out on the racetrack, we know what's starting to come up. So if I have a lot of time where I'm coasting, I've come in, I've used my brakes, I've overslowed the entry, and we'll go to neutral throttle. Neutral throttle means our radius stays the same. Corner's not opening up, bike turns on that same radius, neutral, 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 neutral. Finally can see the exit, take away lean angle, drive off the corner, right? You're getting around the racetrack and you're probably getting around fairly decently, but what we work so hard at a racing level is how can I be more efficient at this sport, right? How can I go to my brakes maybe a little bit lighter, longer, so I can carry them further towards where that direction change is happening, so I can maximize my exit as I start to drive off the corner. So getting some of these ideas of efficiency, you know, I'll see it a lot, especially late in the races, late in these endurance sessions. People have been on the bikes for, you know, we can run an hour. We got a big tank. Some of these small bikes with big tanks, they can go an hour and a half. You know, you'll see some riders that are even 20 minutes in, and all of a sudden you maybe a slower bike, you pass them the one time, they're looking pretty good. You know, 30, 20 laps later, you see that same rider again, and you're seeing them ride a little bit lazy, right? You're seeing them in the center of the seat, right? Every time I see a rider in the center of the seat, tucked in down the straightaway, they go to the brakes and then they start having to move their body. That's inefficient. You know, Josh Hayes was talking at one of the schools back in the day. He says corner entry is crazy, right? So the more we can get done before we approach the corner, the better off we're going to be as we get rolling in through there, right? So, you know, at the school, we always say, hey, we never sit in the center of the seat. But as people get tired, they'll go back to the center of the seat. They'll hang out. Oh, I'm exhausted. They go to the brakes. Now the corner's coming up, and they go, oh, I got to move my body. They're pushing on the bike. Thing gets out of shape. Every time we see that, you know, I guarantee they're going to overslow their corner entry, probably by a couple tenths. You know, so making sure efficiency in what we're doing with our body is making sure we have early preparation for the corner, right? Making sure we're using our upper body's mass to steer the motorcycle. You know, we can body position, it really is kind of the cheat on a motorcycle. You know, it's if you can use your body a little bit more, especially off corner exits on fast bikes, if you can use your body more, you can run less lean angle, right? If you can run less lean angle, you could do a whole lot more of picking up that throttle and picking up that throttle earlier. You know, what lasts longest in the sport, entries or exits? I have never been to a racetrack. I've been to hundreds of tracks. I've never been to a racetrack that had more entries than exit, more time on brakes than there was on the throttle. So the more we can use our body, especially corner exit, to take away lean angle points, we keep our head lowest on corner exit to maximize throttle. Man, it's a pretty good deal. Get more acceleration, more time driving, and you know, you'll see as riders maybe either newer or getting exhausted, we'll see the body start to go away. You know, at this race this last weekend, it actually ended in a red flag. So it was, you know, a 4-hour race. We were maybe 3.5 hours into it. And, you know, a bike goes down in turn 1. 2 bikes go down together. A bike goes down in turn 5. A bike goes down in 7. A bike goes down in 10, right? So it was like within the last, I don't know, half hour of the race, everyone's getting pretty exhausted. And you see it in their ride, and you see riders just not moving, and all of a sudden the bikes start falling down. So those two things are directly related, right? They're using less body on a far worse tire, right? They're using less body because they're tired, right? Their tires are smoked. They may have tried to run 4 hours on a small bike on the same tire. You may have started on it new, but now that tire's not in very good shape. All of a sudden you start giving up on some of these body position things, and it's a tough deal. It'll bite you so fast because the grip is not there, right? That 100-point scale just went down, but because we're not getting that efficiency of using our body, it gets pretty tough. And then efficiency, again, is also using the racetrack properly. Matt Mladen was a 7-time AMA Superbike champion. He said, when you really understand the sport, it's about straight lines. We'll see riders that get rushed, and all of a sudden every corner is these big, long, sweeping, because they never get direction. They never let the bike point to maximize what they can do, which is get the bike off the corner. So, those are a couple of things that really, in doing a lot of lapping, a lot of track days, a lot of racing, those are probably the things that I think most riders would really take a lot away from and improve most on if they start really tweaking away, kind of trying to be that technical rider, be the rider that sits and thinks about all this stuff. And that kind of gets into the idea of having a plan before you roll out, right? I've heard a lot of people with the plan of, I want to go out in the session and I want to do a minute 30. All right, well, that's kind of an outcome. That's not really a plan, right? A plan would be, hey, I got to use more brake pressure in turn 1 because I keep missing the apex. I have to get my eyes moving quicker because I'm leaving 15 feet of racetrack on the exit because I'm not seeing it early enough, right? So if you are doing track days, really work hard to get this idea of having a very specific plan, something you want to work on. It might only be 1 or 2 things, but all of a sudden, 1 or 2 things, you get a 10th here, 2 tenths there, 3 tenths there. All of a sudden, there's that minute 30, that second lap time that you need, but you got there through processes, not from hoping the outcome would start to happen. So, ChampSchool, that's something we beat up so much, is trying to be that technical rider. We've started having students score themselves after every session because it really is that big of a deal. Roger Hayden has been doing quite a few schools with us. It's been super fun having him out. Awesome guy, national 600 champion, winning a bunch of stuff in Superbike. Been at this a really, really long time. And, he talked so much about his pre and post sessions. He says, man, towards the end of his racing career, he said when he was coming in off the track, he was spending an hour going over turn by turn with his crew chief, what the bike was doing, what he was doing, what he needed to work on, what the bike needed to do a little bit better, right? Very specific things that they were kind of really always kind of tweaking and working on. And it was really cool to hear him kind of say that. And then, he said, every time before I go out, he's like, I'm spending a half hour looking at the track map, right? So he gets a track map. Most track days will have them. If you haven't done track day yet, you should. You will totally be hooked once you've done it. But, they'll typically have track maps printed out. And, run these laps in your head. Go through, how was turn 1? I can't get my knee over the curb. For me, that's a missed apex. I've missed my apex if I can't get my knee over the curb. So turn 1, I might go, all right, hey, more brake pressure in turn 1, whatever it might be, right? And you start building that plan. You start building specific things to start working on, and it's a pretty cool deal. We have the Yamaha Y-Track system, which is basically you have a Yamaha R6. I think it's from a 2016 and up, or a Yamaha R1. It's a kit from Yamaha, plugs right in the harness, and basically you put a GPS tracker on it, and you can see really everything you're doing on the bike, right? What percentage of brake pressure am I using there? What percentage of throttle am I going to? It overlays it on the track map. Hey, where am I picking the throttle? What is my top speed here? Hey, when I rush in here, my mile an hour is a little bit slower there. And at this last weekend, my teammate Ben Walters, after every session, we came in. We typically had some videos. We would kind of film each other, say, okay, I want to do this a little bit different here. And then we would pull up our data and overlay our laps, right? And go, okay, hey, I'm actually going to the brakes earlier than you here. I'm 3 miles an hour faster coming out of the corner, right? Or, hey, you're bending longer at lean angle and your mid-corner speed is higher, right? So you're coming in faster, having to leave the bike on the side of the tire longer, and now all of a sudden you're mile an hour slower coming back out of the corner, right? So hey, think about letting the bike slow turn in point a little bit longer, and that will get you back to wide open throttle sooner. So we kind of look at each other's laps and run through it and say, okay, well, you're doing this a little bit better here, and you're going quicker than me on the entry and the exit here. I'm going to change what I'm doing here. Where what kind of reference points are you looking for, right? We're on the same bike. Think of a reference point as it's basically a reference to where you want something to happen. It's easy to go to a track day and say, hey, where are you braking for turn 1, right? And the person says, yeah, I'm braking at the last brake marker. Okay. And they were on an R3, but you don't know that, right? And you go out on your R1 and all of a sudden you're in the weeds. But we're on the same bike, so we could start thinking, okay, we ride fairly similarly. We have that consistent way in our riding. So what can we work on? How do we change what we're doing? Get some of these reference points going and kind of working with that. So this having a plan pre and post getting out on track is it's a pretty big deal. So if you are doing it, if you're thinking about doing it, make that part of your riding. It's track days are great. You meet the best people that you've ever met, but take 5 minutes and think about your riding, then go talk with them, go have a lot of fun, chat, make the most out of the experience, come back to your pits 5 minutes early and go, okay, yeah, oh yeah, I messed up turn 3 and 5. I'm going to start working on those things as we get back out. And it kind of gets into this idea. We get, we'll wrap up a 2-day school, and one of the recent ones at Indy Motorsport Ranch with Kyle Wyman, who's front running Moto America Superbike racer, who won the King of the Baggers for Harley Davidson this year. Pretty cool deal. And we had a student come and goes, okay, so we've done the 2-day school. So where's the mat? What are you guys working on? And it's everyone thinks it's going to be this. Okay, well now we're working on backing it in, or and we're working at the same very basic skills, but maybe at a slightly different level, right? We're going to the brakes. Can I pick up my brakes a half a point lighter? Can I drop my body and get to the throttle 3 feet earlier, right? So it's easy to think that you can, there's got to be this way that you have to do something dramatically different for a better lap time. But, the quick lap time comes from, we had a 3-star general who launched the Top Gun program, and he had this saying that it's about the brilliance in the basics, right? And people were dying in plane fighting, right, military, and they go, well, how do you get a really proficient pilot? And they said, hey, it's the brilliance in the basics, right? It's the idea of you can land in the dark at night on the ship because you've done it a million times over and over till you're bored of it. But it really is that same idea of you've worked so hard at the consistency and the fundamentals, and from there you can just continue to start adding speed and pace to the idea. So it's the way we kind of have always thought about this sport in general. So couple last little things is making sure passing is it's not a last minute ditch effort to get by somebody. That's probably something we see. When we see 2 riders go down at a track day, it's almost always during a passing issue, typically a judgment error, not necessarily understanding when we pass. We go over it pretty heavy at the school, but if you're getting into track days, you want to pass riders while you're parallel with them or going away from them. Parallel with or going away from. Meaning if this hand's going to pass this hand, right? If this hand's coming in, this one wants to get by it. If it can get parallel with that hand before this one turns in, that's a safe pass, right? So what we don't want to see is this rider's turned in and now the pass starts to happen and they're looking through the corner. They don't see, they spook each other, they tuck the front. So, if you are thinking about getting into track days, really pay attention to the riders meeting. Most of them are really good about going over this stuff pretty in depth of what their passing rules might be and different things you want to kind of think about. But parallel with, going away from, becoming a much bigger deal. They used to say, hey, outside passing only in some of the newer groups, and here's this hand trying to come around this hand. they accelerate and all of a sudden they run into them, right? Because that rider is now coming towards them. So really starting to get some of these passing ideas. We get into this really heavy, especially at ChampSchool. We talk about it a little bit in ChampU as well. So kind of just wanted to talk, we're, I think, planning on doing some more of these Facebook Lives and trying to pick some of these topics that we can kind of build upon ourselves to maybe get our riding a little bit better. So, some of the questions we've heard, is the school worth it? Is coming to ChampSchool worth it? And, it is pretty expensive. And, riders go, well, I could do 10 track days for that price. So, I'll learn more in 10 track days. But if you do something wrong for 10 track days in a row, are you really improving, right? If you are a rider that feels like you have maybe plateaued in your riding, that's really what ChampSchool is about, is finding these little things in your ride. And the instructor goes, hey, you need to use your brakes 3 feet longer in that corner. We need to use our body. Think about pointing that toe. Think about doing these little things. And all of a sudden, you're just blown away. We have riders right back in and say, hey, I just took 3 seconds off my lap time after I came to the school at a track that I've ridden at for 10 years because we work so hard at this idea of technique and fundamentals. And it's a pretty cool deal. And, the thing that we're probably most excited about lately is ChampU, which is this idea of getting a lot of these fundamentals out to more riders, right? Being able to start learning these techniques in a very inexpensive way. Really, if you're thinking about doing track days and you go, well, I don't know if this program is going to help you, it's the cost of a tank of fuel driving to the racetrack. Would you spend the money on that? Or are you going to buy an exhaust pipe, right? Which is going to make you maybe a better rider, right? So we're really excited. We hope we get into all these topics. We kind of brushed over a couple little things today, but we really dig into these topics. We dig into these topics pretty in depth. So, if you're on the fence about, coming to the school, doing ChampU, I promise you will get something out of it. These fundamentals are never going to change. It's what we work so hard on. And, maybe you're doing some of these things, but you haven't thought about it in a certain way, or you explain it slightly different, and all of a sudden it makes sense. Like, oh, okay, I see what we're doing. So, check out our website, ridelikeachampion.com. You can get ChampU there. You can sign up for any of our in-person riding, and it's a pretty cool deal. If anyone's got any questions, drop them in the oh my God, there's lots of questions. I didn't realize this scrolled. I was just talking. All right. Let me see here. Pedro, not nice. Let me see here. If anyone's got any questions, drop them in now. Bober, why are most crashes in slow corners? Well, because people want to go fast in the slow stuff. Freddie Spencer used to say, I go slow in the slow corners, right? It's easy to be like, this corner's slow. I'm going to go slow, right? And, you got to let the bike slow in certain places. Work on all those fast corners first. Becomes a pretty big deal. Let me see here. All right, I've been doing track days for years, and I'm still scared because I don't know how much brakes the front tire will handle as I'm trailing in. Once the tire is loaded, how much can I work the tire? That's something that really, we wish there was a way that you could teach feel. It's kind of an interesting deal. Anytime you skip over that first 5%, you're never going to be in a position to adjust from there. So let that tire take a load. You will be shocked how much pressure it can carry. We get into this pretty heavy in ChampU and at ChampSchool, but typically a fork travel number at tip ins around 100 millimeters. If it's 125 millimeters of stroke, riders are turning in at the bottom inch of fork travel. It's a lot more loaded than most riders think. As long as we're giving up brake pressure in a very linear manner, we're adding lean angle in a linear manner, we have a lot of room to adjust. I would say, I've been doing this a long time, a lot more riders are crashing on an underloaded tire than an overloaded tire. right? So realizing that, hey, it's more pressure than you might think. And you can just keep playing with this. If you're on a dirt bike, it's a great place to learn it because you can fall down with very little drama. So, you start working at the feeling of when a tire is overloaded, you'll feel the handlebars start to turn into the corner. It's tucking the front. You might have heard when it gets overloaded, you'll feel the bars start to fold. At that point, you could either give away lean angle points or give away brake pressure points. But yeah, we wish there was an easy way to teach that at the schools, the 2-day champ schools. We'll put you on the back of our bike so you really get a feel for, hey, how much load can this really carry as you're getting into the corner, and feeling it's a very different thing. Let me see here. Yeah, there's a lot of people typing. Thank you. If only I was smart enough to realize that I had to scroll. How do you train your body for endurance racing? It is hell. when you're on the bike for an hour, man, you feel it. Personally, I do a lot of cycling. We'll do little bits of weights here and there, but I've always thought the best thing you can do for your riding is ride more. I probably ride more days now that I do the school than I did when I was racing professionally. Racing professionally, you show up for the race weekend, and that's the only time you ever get on a bike. Since we've been doing the schools, I ride 130, 140 days a year. The muscles that you'll work they start getting a little bit kind of stronger. It's a weird sport to train for because, I did it for so many years, and there's not a lot of things that you could do that are an exact correlation to the bike. We'll do a lot of, I think dirt bikes are great. It's a lot of the same motions. It's a lot of kind of the same muscle groups and things like that. A lot of endurance. But yeah, it is a very difficult sport to learn, really work towards. We talk a lot about core strength in ChampU and out at the school is, one, how could you use your body more efficiently so it's less exhausting, right? So we get in a lot of just kind of the little touch points of like, hey, if I don't ever go back to the middle of the seat, I may only need to move my body 4 times a lap, right? You do that over an hour stint. I think in my first stint, I think I did like 62 laps or something like that. If you could move 5 times less in a lap, 52 times, right? All of a sudden, these things start to add up. So, one is taking advantage of relaxing on the bike. As you get maybe more comfortable with it, for myself, I was kind of coming along straight away and remind myself to breathe, remind myself to kind of relax, stretch out a little bit if you're going to be on the bike for a long time. But yeah, you could train and train and train, but the more proficient you get in your riding, I find the less exhausting it is. But there's not a real great way that's super easy to do it. Yeah, David Bover wrote in asking about the difference between street and track. And I raced on the track for 25 years, and I've had my street license for about 3 years now. And I have a lot more track experience than I do street. But we met me, Nick, and David, and Keith, and all the guys from the school. We all went riding through the twisties in Southern California and just had the best time. And I've been teaching the track stuff for so long. I've always thought about the sport in a track kind of way, right? The way that we go to the brakes, the way that we're thinking about, the way that we're using our eyes, the way I'm moving my body. It was always a very, I've always catered towards the track side because that's what I knew. And we went street riding, and it was like, get to the first gas station, I was like, this is exactly the same. It's all the same stuff. Technique is technique, and that's what really all we work on in our riding and at the school and on ChampU is, how do I get my technique a little bit better? And that's always what we're kind of working on. Vision is challenging. You switch from track to street. Do you have any vision tips? Vision it's the thing we're always working on. If you can start scanning your eyes quicker, we know a lot of riders that actually work on training their eyes, right? moving your eyes is a very, it's something you have to actually work towards, right? We get in a car when we're 16 and you kind of suck in a car because you haven't gone 60 mph before, right? Kind of clumsy, not able to judge closing speeds. Then you're doing that for a few years and it becomes natural. Same thing, you get on the bike and you're not used to doing 180 mph. So, eventually your eyes will get there. But the more you can practice scanning and using our eyes, it's a pretty big thing. You could be sitting in your room, scan up to something, scan back, work on looking out into the distance, scan back. We'll say look sooner, scan back. Look sooner is you got to see where the bike is going and a little bit of the big picture, right? Scan back is lets us know where we are in space and how we need to adjust. Mark Schellinger, one of our senior instructors, I like what he said. When we think about street riding, it's a little bit more of that wide-angled lens, right? We're trying to take in a lot of different stuff, right? We're trying to take in, hey, there's the light. That car looks like it's going to turn left. Hey, that driver beside me is on their phone, right? So you're trying to take in a lot of these different things around us, but a little bit more big picture, right? So, your vision is going to be a much wider lens that you're looking through. The track is very pinpointed. It's if I want my bike to go there, I have to get my eyes there and I have to focus it there, and I will leave my eyes till I get the result that I'm looking for, meaning the bike is starting to head wherever I'm wanting it to go. Then I can scan my eyes and look out to that next thing. So, it's I always try to work to get my eyes scanning a little bit quicker, especially on the track stuff. I know coming from the school, I'll get on my race bike, my eyes are too slow, right? So when I sit down with my track map, I'm saying, hey, move my eyes quicker here, here, here. On the street, I kind of let my pace be the guide for that. If things are shocking me, which typically things shock us when we see it late, I will slow down until I start getting my eyes moving, start getting kind of adjusted. So, don't be afraid to bring the speed down a good amount on the streets to where it's comfortable and things aren't shocking and, you have the greatest time ever. But, when we get late with the eyes, we get rushed in, we make mistakes, right? When we're late with the eyes, we lose focus, we get abrupt, all these things start to happen. So, I'd suggest really street ride and bring that pace down and start to kind of work on things from there. What else? What else do we got? Sorry, I'm trying to skim through here. Talking and reading. This is very difficult for me. Let me see. Well, if any of you guys have anything, as always, please reach out to the school. Get this thing wrapped up here. But if you haven't checked out ChampU, check out ChampU. If you haven't come to the school, ChampU is great because you learn these things. ChampSchool is great because we let you know what things you need to start working on. And that's really kind of the difference between the two things and what we work so hard towards. So ridelikeachampion.com. We're going to start trying to do these lives a little bit more frequently. So keep an eye out for our page and our events coming up. And hopefully we can keep giving you guys some good information. And we will talk to you soon.